Indeed. All right. Today we're in the mid-end of 1 Samuel 21. We've seen a number of things since Judges. Judges was a really hard time in the land and amongst the people of Israel, and really a pretty terrible book in so many ways, because it just really highlights and underscores the mass failure of a people, and how that failure wound up leading them to choosing to want kings and to have a king over them, and how God really allowed them to choose having a king, even in spite of the fact that he wanted to be their king. He wanted to have their whole heart, and wanted to give them something very special, and yet they wanted what they saw other people in the land having, and he permitted that. And now we're in the spot where those kings have began to take authority over the land, and we've seen that Saul has been in charge, and we're in this kind of a moment of close and near transition where David is going to be relatively soon, taking control, but he's now going to be perceived as king in this story for the first time, and that makes him a little unnerved. Let's read it. David went to Nob to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech trembled when he met him and asked, "Why are you alone? Why is no one with you?" David answered Ahimelech the priest, "The king sent me on a mission and said to me, 'No one is to know anything about the mission I am sending you on. As for my men, I told them to meet me in a certain place. Now, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever you can find." The priest answered David, I don't have any ordinary bread on hand. However, there is some consecrated bread here, provided the men have kept themselves from women. David replied, "Indeed, women have been kept from us as usual whenever I set out. The men's bodies are holy, even on missions that are not holy. How much more so today?" So the priest gave him the consecrated bread, since there was no bread there except the bread of the presence that had been removed from before the Lord had replaced by hot bread on the day it was taken. Now, one of Saul's servants was there that day, detained before the Lord. He was Dog of Edomite, Saul's chief shepherd. David asked Ahimelech, "Don't you have a spear or a sword here?" "I haven't brought my sword or any other weapon because the king's mission was urgent." The priest replied, "The sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elal, was here, and it's wrapped in cloth behind the ephod. If you want it, you can take it. There is no sword here but that one." David said, "There is none like it. Give it to me." That day, David fled from Saul and went to Achish, king of Gath, and the servants of Achish said to him, "Isn't this David, the king of the land? Isn't he the one that they sing about in their dances? Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands." David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. And then we jump in our Bible reading to one of his Psalms that reflects on this moment from his perspective. "Be merciful to me, my God, for my enemies are in hot pursuit. All day long they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long. In their pride, many are attacking me. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you, in God, whose word I praise. In God I trust, and I am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?"
All day long they twist my words. All their schemes are for my ruin. They conspire, they lurk, they watch my steps, hoping to take my life. Because of their wickedness, do not let them escape. In your anger, God, bring the nations down. Record my misery, list my tears on your scroll. Are they not in your record? Then my enemies will turn back when I call for help. By this I will know that God is for me. In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? I am under vows to you, my God. I will present my thank offerings to you, for you have delivered me from death and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. So he pretended to be insane in the presence. And while he was in their hands, he acted like a madman, making marks on the doors of the gate and letting saliva run down his beard. Achish said to his servants, "Look at the man, he is insane. Why bring him to me? Am I short of madmen that you had to bring me this fellow here to carry on like this in front of me? Must this man come into my house?" And then we move back into another psalm of David when he pretended to be insane. "I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. I will glory in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man called and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him. Fear the Lord, you holy people, for those who fear him lack nothing. The lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good, seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to blot out their name from the earth. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. He protects all his bones. Not one of them will be broken. Evil will slay the wicked. The foes of the righteous will be condemned. The Lord will rescue his servants. The one who takes refuge in him will be condemned.
David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, they went down to him there. All those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. David prays for refuge from his enemies, Psalm 142. It's a maskil of David when he was in the cave, a prayer. I cry aloud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him my complaint. Before him I tell my trouble. When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you who watch over my way. In the path where I walk, people have hidden a snare for me. Look and see, there is no one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life. I cry to you, Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Listen to my cry, for I am in desperate need. Rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are too strong for me. Set me free from my prison, that I may praise your name. Then the righteous will gather about me because of your goodness to me. Some Gadites defected to David at his stronghold in the wilderness. They were brave warriors, ready for battle and able to handle the shield and spear. Their faces were the faces of lions, and they were as swift as gazelles in the mountains. Ezer was the chief, Obadiah the second in command, Eliab the third, Mishmana the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth, Jeremiah the 10th, and Macbanai the 11th. These Gadites were army commanders. The least was a match for 100, and the greatest for 1,000. It was they who crossed the Jordan in the first month when it was overflowing all its banks. And they put to flight everyone living in the valleys to the east and to the west. Other Benjamites and some men from Judah also came to David in his stronghold. David went out to meet them and said to them, if you have come to me in peace to help me, I am ready for you to join me. But if you have come to betray me to my enemies when my hands are free from violence, may the God of our ancestors see it and judge you. Then the Spirit came on Amasai, chief of the 30, and he said,
We are yours, David. We are with you, son of Jesse. Success to you, and success to those who help you, for your God will help you. So David received them and made them leaders of his raiding bands. From there, David went to Mizpah in Moab and said to the king of Moab, would you let my father and mother come and stay with you until I learn what God will do for me? So he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him as long as David was in the stronghold. But the prophet Gad said to David, "Do not stay in the stronghold. Go into the land of Judah." So David left and went to the forest of Hereth.
So one of the interesting elements of this story is not as well captured in this reading as it is in other translations, and that's that when David was in the presence of this other king, they perceived him as the king already, and they give nuance to it in this translation, but it's more present in the Hebrew and in some other translations that they believed him to be king, and that created the fear that David had. And it's really quite amazing to me is how David, he presses into God and feels as if he gets a way out. And for him, that way out was to act or present himself as insane, which in his mind was an ultimate act of humility, not to be who he was, but to be much lower than he was, to be even a crazy person that would be not seen as someone of high concern or value. But how would this story maybe have turned out differently if David had told the priest at the beginning that he was maybe fleeing from Saul? If he had been really transparent and honest about that, how could this have gone? I think it could have gone a couple different ways. But in your mind, as you were reading it, how do you imagine that to turn out?
You're saying how would we imagine if the priest Amalek, what was his name? Amalek, yeah, would have known that he's running from Saul.
Amalek, I would say, yeah.
Amalek. Yeah, I think, well, in the end, it turns out pretty bad for those priests, but I think he would have, he would have harbored David still.
Yeah.
Because, they would have heard, at least they would have heard that Saul was out of favor with God, and that, being a priest, Samuel probably would have been talking with all the priests, saying that I have now anointed this new king, and that is David.
Right. That's what I was wondering too. The idea that, here you've got David already having kind of been anointed and as the one that's going to be king, and you see Saul so clearly out of favor, and yet I don't know that David had confidence in that. It doesn't seem in the text that David has confidence that that he can trust others.
Right.
And I get it, because he's in a position of real betrayal, and you've got someone that you've kind of vowed to serve that is coming after you and wanting to kill you, and so the fear that kind of could creep in when you have an army or a military might or a virus, when you got something that's out there that's kind of threatening your very life, and there's a corrupting nature inside of our character, I think sometimes that doesn't know exactly where we can run or where we can hide or where we can go or what we should lean on, and he wasn't wanting to at that moment to lean on the priests. That's for sure. He wasn't wanting to entrust himself into the priest's care, and I look at, I think sometimes it's like we've got some people that are in the room with us today, but I wonder how many people might translate their current situation into a fearful one, and not want to turn to God, or maybe not want to turn to the church, or not want to turn to the priests or the religious, and say, what, I'm just going to kind of tough this one out on my own a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and when David was with the priests, you could tell that he wasn't really wanting to trust into the priests or what they were saying, because he's like, that sword, give it to me, I want it, give me the sword.
Nothing like that sword. That's
there's nothing in his words of just, all right, let me have it. and so he's gonna really trust into his protection there. Yeah,
And
and
yet
then
at the same time that that he's got this kind of duality in a sense in that, there's what he says and what he does. And it seems as if what he says and what he does is somewhat incongruent in the text where, and in my life, man, can I point to lots of places of incongruence like this where I know, God, I really want you to be on my side. And I really know, God, that I want to trust you. And I'm crying out to you. And yet all my actions kind of display that I'm going to trust in chariots.
right.
I'm going to trust in my own might and in my own strength. And so I see this kind of a heart for and a confidence in, and the heart for and the confidence in are somewhat moving in opposing directions. Do you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how that kind of dilemma that we all struggle with in our own lives comes out in David's songs. And again, just the importance of worship in not only just sing, all of it glorifies God because we're crying out to him, but David had to write those Psalms. It seems like he didn't have a way to deal with that confliction in his life other than putting it into song and just crying like, God, do you not hear me? Like, like questioning God and then questioning himself, and just, I don't know, it's just amazing how this text really just demonstrates the importance of finding ways to express ourselves to God in order to trust him.
Looking at the chats, just Dustin has an interesting perspective too. Besides, in addition to the struggling with trust, in case not everyone's looking at the chat, he thinks also that David has some insecurities about being king, and that just besides the trust issue, he's just looking to avoid and escape from the potential of actually becoming king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And David's emotions of who he is and what God has anointed him to be is like a roller coaster, just up and down, up and down. I mean, he's one way, one day, and the next the other. And I mean, I could understand that because he's running for his life, and he's living in caves, he's living in the wilderness, he's trying to find food for himself. And these guys that are with him now, and it's probably a really tough situation, and so for him, and so his emotions are like, why God? And we have those too. Why do we have to stay in this cave that we're in right now? Can we go out?
Well, it's so funny. I saw this post on Facebook the other day that Americans are demonstrating themselves to be more like children than ever before. They can't stay home and just obey one little thing or one command from authority, and how hard it is for us to stay idle for a short time.
Right. I was thinking,
I'll send my kids to their room and they're like, I don't want to go. And I watch as, we've been sent to our homes and I don't want to go. And
if I was thinking, if David truly trusted in his anointing of king, he wouldn't be running. Wouldn't you think that he would have stayed and kind of said, Saul, hey, but he's not there yet.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, everybody, one thing we forgot to mention earlier, when you're in the chat, click on the little drop down of who you're sending your chat to and click on all panelists and attendees. And that way we can all see each other. Forgot to address that earlier.
And if you have a question, it's better to put the question in Q&A rather than chat, because the Q&A is easier for us to find actual questions.
I think, Seth, you wanted to answer a question, Chris's question. Right. Plus the Philistines, he's in the Philistine camp right now, acting and those are their enemies. I mean, he's killed a lot of Philistines, David has. Yeah. And so, to save his own life, he's got to pretend that he's a crazy man like he's not a threat then.
Yeah.
So, because
Tanya, I love what you said. Tanya said, as I walk more with the Lord, I'm finding that I can only turn and trust in God. There's no one else but God that can reach those deep places within me. And I love that. And again, that's what is so beautiful about David's Psalms, is that they go deeper than stories and words, but they're from the heart, you know? And so that is a good point. We will try to put our trust in other things in the world or other people, and it will always fail, but God never will.
mm-hmm. You know, Brian, you have a good point in the Q&A part. Was David really afraid of taking his role as king, or was he waiting on God's timing and showing honor to Saul? And I think it's a little bit of both. We do see him that he is honoring. He wants to honor Saul. He wants to honor Saul, and he wants to honor Jonathan. But he also knows that he's anointed king, and he might be, we're speculating here. He might be, waiting for God's timing in that. But there's also some fear that is happening, and you can see it in his words of what he's saying in the Psalms. And there's a little of misunderstanding, like, why, God? You're supposed to be my fortress. You're supposed to be my protector, and I'm crying out to you. And kind of, where are you at? And so there's a little bit of that both going on in his mindset through the words, at least, so we can see that. So.
Mm-hmm. I did a quick look up, and one of the commentaries was reflecting on. It's a longer thought than what I'll share here, but the idea that there is a sense of God's protection of those who are brokenhearted, and that perhaps even David was kind of thinking, you know what, I am going to be, and in this moment, as I'm seeking God's protection, as lowly a person as I can get. That's an interesting perspective. I don't know if I'm 100% on that page yet. I think that, there is God protects the humble and gives grace to the humble, for sure. And there is a humbling of himself in that. But I think it was really just seems from the text to me to be more of a self-protectionary. I just don't want them to think I'm king. I don't want them to think that I'm even capable of that job. That is what it appears to me, but I don't know that. All right. What was our next question? I think it was related to that psalm and the prayer there. But I've closed mine out for the moment. I have to go back and find it. Let's see.
What does Psalm 34 reveal to us about prayer?
Yeah.
And I look just at, the very 34 verse 1, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. And when I think about that all times, here we are in the midst of something we've never experienced before. And is God really, is his praise really first and foremost? Is that where I go first? And I have to confess that, no, I don't go there first. My first is, well, gee, what's going to happen now? And what are we going to do about this? And what are we going to do about that? And that psalm is, no, I got it backwards. Start there, and then we'll figure out the rest of it.
Yeah, that's really good. I don't know if you guys caught anything on the news yesterday. I was not really able to, I had very little time for television yesterday, but just before I headed to bed, I just scrolled through a few of the news cycles, not cycles, but channels, seeing how they were reporting on it. And over again, the reflection was how the demeanor and tone of President Trump had shifted and changed in a fairly dramatic way in his briefing yesterday. And they had, all kinds of speculations as to why that was, but no one was speculating that it was because of good news. And there was a sense of dread and concern in his voice and in his demeanor that created in my opinion, a media soberness. As I was scrolling through, I noticed that some of the networks that don't usually afford him a favorable report were now a little bit sober in their assessment of him in the moment. And so it brought me to a place where I just was thinking, as I was going to bed last night, that we are in a place where I would guess very few of our friends and our citizenship and the people that we're interacting with at work and in schools over the next days and weeks will fall into the category of, I will exalt the Lord at all times. I'll extol him at all times. I will praise and let his praise be on my lips. And I'll choose to let the glory and my glory be in the Lord. And yet the cry on that fourth line was, let the afflicted hear and rejoice. That there is a moment where as we're in the text, as we're as we're looking at the sacred script, as we're pressing into the logos of God, I think that a responsibility comes with that for us, that we glorify the Lord and we invite others to exalt his name together with us, and that we are pointing people towards the reality that we don't know, and there's a lot that we don't know. But in the face of what we don't know, here's what we do know. We do know that we exalt the Lord and extol the Lord at all times, that we praise him, and his praise, our worship of God is going to be on our lips, that our choice of glory and where our glory is going to be found and who we're going to glory, that's going to be in the Lord. And when we look and we see the brokenness and we see in some cases the death, and we see the pain, we want to exalt his name even in the midst of this together, And I love that he goes on. He goes, I sought the Lord and he answered me. He delivered me from my enemies. No, didn't say that. He delivered me from my fears. And what a powerful word, right? One of my musings as I was heading to bed last night. Well, let's spend a little bit of time in prayer. Was there anything else that we wanted to make sure we covered before we do that?
Mark, earlier on, and I don't know if it was when we were visiting before we started the webinar, but as we've been sent to our caves, so to speak.
Yep.
This is a wonderful opportunity to allow everything to slow down.
Yeah.
And I guess my prayer is that as things slow down, we allow ourselves some time and some permission really to reflect on God.
Yeah.
And when I say reflect on him, whether it's a reading of the Psalm, whether it is simply getting quiet and just sitting and listening.
Yeah.
I really wonder, it's a forced timeout, and wouldn't it be great if we use this as that opportunity to refresh our relationship with him? Right.
Well, it's kind of my hope, and it is my hope for our church that we increasingly do exactly what you just said. So, yeah. And it's funny because the people that I sense that are doing it, as I've been calling and talking to folks, are reflecting a kind of a reality that is what they're experiencing, and often the ones that aren't or haven't yet begun are deeply concerned in a different kind of a way, not one that's faith-filled, but one that's more crippling. And so I kind of get that there is a distinction for sure. Hey, at the very beginning, we had a question from my friend Caitlin, and I just want to point out one thing real quick, that some of you probably have gone and seen our new website, and there's a couple spots, one right up at the beginning, and then also towards the bottom of our new webpage, where you can submit prayer requests. We got a team of people that are praying right now for our church and for people in the church, and that are being receptive to these prayer requests. And I would sure love for our prayer team to be praying for you, or if you have family or friends that you can point here. When we were receiving prayer requests on a weekly basis, we would get quite a lot. And right now there's only a few that are trickling in. And so our prayer team needs work. So if you can help keep them busy, they would love and they long to be praying for you. And there's quite a number of what I would describe, and I don't mean this in some of the ways that I hear some people say this, and I don't always think that it means what they think it means, but we have real prayer warriors. I mean, people that are going to spiritual battle on your behalf. And so I encourage you to come to the website and leave your prayer requests. But Caitlin, I'd like to begin our prayer time by praying for you. I don't know exactly what your situation is, but I want to lift you and your family up in prayer. And then why don't a few of you pray for our nation? And when it feels right, Josh, would you close us up? And as a little notation, after you get done praying, Josh, would you just give us a little update on when your next live worship is? So
Yeah.
Close by giving us a little update on when we can expect to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But God, I lift Caitlin up to you right now, and I recognize that in her family and with her kids, that there's all kinds of reasons for her to need to press into you in a very deep and profound way. So give her eyes to see how to do that. Give her patience with her children. Give her a passion for your name and for pressing into your word in this season. And God, would you be with her in the midst of her specific requests, that you would give her what she needs in this moment and in this day.
And Lord, as we work through another day, and I do pray that you would just help us to focus on today, but as we look around our nation and around the world, as Mark pointed out earlier, Lord, there's a sobering that seems to be coming upon as we begin to grasp the magnitude, if we hadn't before, of what our country in particular is facing right now. And Lord, I'm reminded that regardless of whatever we think is serious and whatever intensity there is to this virus, one thing remains, Father, that you are on the throne. You never left the throne. You are in control. And we, at this time, as much as any other, we need to lean into you and rely on you. Father, thank you that you have not moved. Thank you that you are the same today as you were yesterday and the way you will be tomorrow. And Father, just help us to keep that in the front, maybe the front of our minds, but certainly in our hearts. Lord, the needs out there are great. There are many people in need of prayer, and I just ask that you would help us to keep the needs of others in the front as well. And for our leaders, national, state, local leaders, as they make decisions, continue to protect our healthcare workers, Father. We're realizing more and more how those people are being impacted by this, and pray a shroud of protection over them. Just thank you for opportunities that we have to come together still in the midst of a crisis. We still have the opportunity to come together and worship you. And I just want to give this day to you, Lord.
Lord, you are a great God, and you have made this day, and so we praise your name. Lord, we sometimes feel like we're in the pit of despair and in the valley. Lord, you are with us. You are with us, Lord. And Lord, as we do think of that, oh man, we're in such this time of need. We're not on the mountaintop, we're in the valley, but we got to remember that where the valley is where the water flows, and where we can take rest and refuge in you, and that we can know that we can rely on you, Lord, more and more. Lord, I pray that that we seek your face. We seek you, Lord, every single day. And Lord, I pray for this country. I pray for the leaders of this country, the leaders of our state, that you will give them wisdom and knowledge. Lord, that you will help them and guide them as we deal with this virus in our country. Lord, I do pray for the health workers as well. Like Todd said, I have friends that are in that profession that are dealing with patients of COVID-19 daily, and I just ask for protection over them. But I also ask that you will give them extra strength and rest, and that they can be such a presence of God within that hospital. Lord, let us be your hands and feet during this time.
God, I just think about the fear and anxiety that is spreading right now, Lord, in so many different ways. Not only the fear of getting sick, but just the fear of uncertainty and change, and just God, I know for me, I just have this anxiety, and I don't even really know what it is. I just know that the world's crazy right now, and our way of life has changed, and it's hard to not want to control that and to know what's going to happen tomorrow. And God, I just think about how that draws me to my knees, and I'm just amazed that throughout my life that you've used everything that I've gone through to bring me back to my knees, to say, God, you know what, I'm sorry for not trusting you, trying to do it myself, and I need you again. And God, I just love the heart of David that is, that he, I'm just thankful that he wrote those words down where he cries out to you. And he is so honest with you because he knows that you know his heart and his every thought better than any person ever could. And so he's honest with you, just saying, God, do you not hear me? And you do hear him, God. And I think about Psalm 34, I seek the Lord and he answers me, delivers me from all my fears. And so our response is to invite each other to magnify the Lord together, God. And that's what we want to do right now. So let our response to our anxieties and our fears and everything else that's going on in our minds be not only to lift your name, but to invite each other to magnify your name and to know that that's our weapon against the enemy, Lord. And God, I just thank you so much that you know each one of us down to the core of our heart. And I pray that everyone here in this chat and the rest of our church and our communities and our people, God, will just be reminded by us in every way that we can to turn to you. This is a time to turn to you. And God, we thank you that you hear every prayer, you listen and you answer. And God, I just lift up Tanya to you, just asking for prayer this morning for the pain that she's dealing with. God, I pray that you will comfort her and give her peace and just help her to be able to deal with that pain and give that to you as well. God, just give her comfort today. And we just lift all these things up to you in your name, Jesus. Amen. Well, yeah, so thank you guys so much for being with us today. This Bible study has just been an amazing thing. I hope that we can spread the word. Tell your friends. You know, this is to me, this is like one of the greatest things we're doing right now as a church, because we're doing church every morning together, and it's very cool. So, but we're going to be doing a worship session tonight, and right now the plan is to post a worship video at 7:00 that I'm going to interact live with. We're kind of trying different things. This one's going to be from home, from my house, with the Pool family.
The new live studio.
Live studio, exactly. With the Pools. Pool ladies are going to be singing. It's going to be great. But I'm excited too, because our worship teams have been connecting and coming up with some ideas, and just stay posted, because we've got some really fun ideas of different ways that we can still do worship together as a team and share that with you. So it'll be cool.
Well, and I know that that there are some amongst us who think the website has never looked better than it does right now. But there's a possibility, if I'm right, that this particular square in the middle is going to go away. Will this be where the live stream is? Seth, can you speak to that?
Yep.
So, I know for some here that might be a downgrade, but
Yeah. I mean, look at it's my face.
No wonder they like it so much.
that's where you can that's where you can go to pick up the live stream. All right, it is 7:41, and so for what's good for the order, we're going to call this meeting to adjourn. We'll see many of you on the live stream tonight, and the rest of you hopefully can join us tomorrow morning. By the way, we had 37 participants in our Bible study this morning. Thanks for being here, and great to be able to share this time with you, gang.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.